On Texas cattle drives in the 1870s, a working cowboy often earned only $25 to $40 a month. That comparison tells us more than the familiar movie scene. A cowboy did not enter a saloon, throw down endless silver, and drink from the nearest unlabeled bottle. Price, town, year, and customer all mattered. In 1876, Dodge City, Kansas, had about 1,200 residents and 19 licensed liquor businesses. Their counters served railroad workers, soldiers, merchants, gamblers, lawmen, cattle buyers, immigrants, and trail hands. Cowboys were visible customers, especially after a drive, but they were never the whole room. Whiskey still deserves first place because it traveled well and sold easily. A barrel could be shipped farther and stored longer than fresh beer. A saloon might buy bulk spirit from a wholesaler and pour it from a barrel or decanter. A better establishment could display sealed bottles. Western customers could encounter bourbon, rye, corn whiskey, imported Scotch or Irish whiskey, and rectified spirits. Rectified whiskey was neutral or young spirit blended, colored, and flavored to resemble an older product. Cheap liquor could wear a very confident name. Ordering whiskey straight usually meant the customer wanted it without sugar, bitters, water, or another mixer. That was bar language, not the precise federal production, meaning the word acquired later. He was mainly telling the bartender not to turn it into a cocktail. The difference between bulk and branded whiskey mattered because the trade was lightly regulated. In San Francisco, Anson-Hodeling's firm distributed Cutter Old Bourbon in embossed bottles during the 1870s. Old Crow also had a national reputation before the frontier period ended. A recognizable bottle gave a buyer some protection against a local dealer pouring a mixture into a reused container. It was not perfect protection, but it beat trusting a black bottle and a bartender who had discovered the profit margin in water. The words red eye, coffin varnish, tarantula juice, and rotgut appear in Western stories, but they were not 4 standard recipes. Most were insults or broad names for strong, unpleasant liquor. Rectifiers really did use caramel, prune juice, glycerin, and other flavoring materials. There is far less evidence that ordinary saloons routinely added gunpowder, tobacco, turpentine, or poison to every barrel. Fraud existed. Dangerous liquor existed. The lurid recipe repeated in modern entertainment was still not a universal bar manual. Dodge City's Long Branch Saloon shows why one house cannot stand for all the others. Charles Bassett and Alfred Peacock were connected with its early years. Chalk Beeson and William Harris bought it in 1878 and made it one of the town's better-known establishments. Beeson led a 5-piece orchestra. The bar offered gambling, beer, champagne, and non-alcoholic drinks as well as stronger liquor. A rough customer could enter, but this was not merely a plank counter beside a barrel. Some larger saloons offered food with a drink. A free lunch could include ham, cheese, pickles, bread, or salted fish. The salt encouraged another order, so the lunch was free only because the bar expected to recover the cost. Whiskey built the legend because it was compact and profitable, yet beer was changing the Western bar itself. Once brewers solved transport and cooling, a saloon no longer depended only on whatever spirit survived a wagon ride. The beer story begins with immigration and ends with a cold glass that was not always cold. German immigrants brought brewing skill, lager yeast, beer gardens, table service, music, and a different idea of public drinking. By 1880, more than 1/3 of Denver's saloons were German-owned. Customers could hear German speech and songs, read German newspapers, eat familiar food, and drink beer or wine at a table instead of standing at a crowded whiskey bar. An Irish-owned stand-up saloon, a German beer hall, a mining camp tent, and a hotel bar might all hold liquor licenses, yet they did not serve the same crowd in the same way. Turn Hall in Denver, established in 1889, became a well-known German social center. Immigrant saloons also worked as employment offices, club rooms, political meeting places, and informal banks. Beer suited a customer who intended to remain over one glass rather than repeat shots of whiskey. Local breweries made that possible. In 1873, German immigrants Adolf Coors and Jacob Schuller opened the Golden Brewery in Golden, Colorado. Golden was close enough to Denver and Colorado mining districts to reach customers without sending every keg across half the continent. Local production reduced freight time. and cool lagering cellars let beer mature properly. The later Coors name became famous, but the original business competed in a crowded regional market. Lager was harder to move than whiskey. It could spoil, and heat changed it. A keg needed clean storage and quick delivery. In winter, a saloon could cut ice from a river or pond and store it under sawdust. In summer, ice might arrive by rail, assuming the railroad reached the town and the keeper could pay. Ice-cold beer was real in some places, and decades, not a permanent feature of every settlement. St. Louis turned the transport problem into a national business. Eberhard Anheuser and his son-in-law Adolphus Busch expanded their brewery with pasteurization, bottling, mechanical refrigeration, and refrigerated rail transport. Budweiser appeared in 1876 through a partnership involving Busch and beer merchant Carl Conrad. The company later used about 850 refrigerated rail cars, supported by railside ice houses, to move beer far beyond Missouri. The route was practical and expensive. Beer left St. Louis in a cooled rail car. Workers replaced ice along the line. A depot received the kegs and bottles. A wagon moved them to a saloon, where they entered a cellar, icebox, or cool back room. Every step could raise the price, or damage the product. Dodge City's railroad carried cattle east, and beer, bottles, glassware, and ice west. The Long Branch reportedly served Anheuser beer. River ice worked in winter, while summer ice could come by train from Colorado. That supply chain was far removed from an early camp, selling whatever survived in a wagon barrel. Draft beer cost less to package, but a tapped keg had to sell quickly. Bottled beer carried a brand and traveled more neatly, though glass added weight and breakage. Ale could be produced without the long, cold storage demanded by lager, so it remained useful where refrigeration was unreliable. Lager gained ground because brewers, railroads, ice dealers, and customers built the system it needed. This did not create one national menu overnight. Budweiser did not erase local breweries in 1876, and Coors did not instantly appear behind every Western bar. Denver could sell local lager. Dodge City could receive a St. Louis product. A remote camp could serve warm beer, sour beer, or no beer. Once rail service and ice expanded the trade, wine, champagne, cordials, and mixed drinks followed the same route toward customers who could pay. That expensive side of Western drinking is easy to miss because it does not fit the usual cowtown set. San Francisco had sophisticated hotel bars before many cattle towns existed. Virginia City, Nevada, produced mining millionaires as well as miners. Leadville, Colorado, grew so quickly during the silver boom that one 1879 count listed 82 saloons, along with restaurants and wholesale liquor houses. A customer with money could find wine, champagne, brandy, cordials, and professionally mixed drinks without returning east. The Boston Saloon in Virginia City is a strong reminder that Western bar culture was not socially simple. William A.G. Brown, a black businessman, opened it in 1864. Archaeological work found evidence of quality food and specialized glassware. Wine could be served in crystal goblets, while smaller glasses suited sherry and cognac. Brown's customers lived under the racial prejudice of the period. Yet his saloon offered a polished public space owned by an African-American man in a major mining town. The Millionaire's Washoe Club in Virginia City offered chandeliers, private space, and a different standard from a cheap bit house. A surviving display associates beer, whiskey, and cigars with a price of 25 cents. That figure should not be exported across the entire West, but it shows how one coin could buy a drink, a smoke, or a small statement of belonging in one club. Champagne made an even louder statement. It traveled in heavy bottles, occupied freight space, and required careful handling. A glass at the bar was one thing. A bottle ordered for a table, private room, dance party, or supper could cost far more. The price covered import charges, breakage, ice, service, and status. At the Long Branch in Dodge City, champagne appeared beside beer and whiskey. In San Francisco hotels and Nevada mining clubs, it accompanied meals and celebrations. Mixed drinks were real, but unevenly distributed. Jerry Thomas published The Bartender's Guide in 1862. It documented the whiskey cocktail, gin cocktail, champagne cocktail, punches, eggnog, and Tom and Jerry. Harry Johnson's 1882 manual added detailed instructions for running a bar and Making Drinks in the Present Style. These books prove that bartenders knew more than how to pour whiskey. They do not prove that every saloon between Texas and Montana stocked every syrup, bitter, liqueur, fruit, and piece of ice. A better city bar could offer 4 very different orders. A whiskey cocktail combined whiskey with sugar, bitters, and water. A champagne cocktail dressed sparkling wine with sugar and bitters. A Tom and Jerry used a rich egg mixture with hot liquid and spirits. A punch served several people at a banquet, hotel, or club. These drinks required ingredients, clean tools, ice, and glassware. A trail hand in a basic Cattletown bar might still choose plain whiskey because it was fast and familiar. Jerry Thomas worked in major American hotels during his traveling career, including San Francisco. He represented the professional bartender who measured, mixed, chilled, and performed. Harry Johnson even instructed bartenders to place ice water before customers ordering drinks. That rule quietly destroys another myth. A proper late 19th century bar could serve water on purpose. Class showed in the furniture. One customer stood at a pine counter with a thick glass. Another sat beneath chandeliers and ordered wine in stemware. A third paid for a bottle in a private room with music and food. Seating, table service, entertainment, security, and privacy were part of the bill. Ethnicity shaped the order too. A German worker in Denver might prefer local lager and a meal. An Irish laborer might choose whiskey at a standing bar. A merchant could look for wine. A mining investor could buy champagne. People crossed every category, but saloons often sold familiarity. The real question was not simply what cowboys drank. It was what a particular customer could afford in a particular town. For an ordinary trail hand, the transaction began with a monthly wage of about $25 to $40. Wranglers could earn around $50. Cooks and ramrods might receive about $75. Trail bosses could make $100 or more. Those were broad ranges, not guarantees, but they explain why one price meant different things to different men. Take the 25-cent whiskey associated with Virginia City's Washoe Club. For a cowboy earning $25 a month, one drink equaled 1% of monthly pay. 4 drinks equaled $1, or 4%. A 5-cent beer, where that lower price existed, was easier to absorb. A round for 5 friends changed the calculation fast. The danger was repetition. Treating the group, gambling, meals, lodging, and credit gathered into one night. Dodge City's newspaper left a useful picture of scale. In September of 1877, the Dodge City Times joked that the town was relapsing into morality because it had only 17 saloons and dance houses. The report also counted 60 prostitutes, 30 gamblers, and 80 cowboys. It showed how the cattle trade concentrated customers and businesses during the season. A saloon made money from several directions. The bar sold whiskey by the glass at a large markup over the barrel cost. Beer moved by glass or bottle. Gambling took a percentage, or rented tables. Food kept customers inside. Music drew a crowd. Some houses offered rooms or worked with hotels and dance halls. At the Long Branch, gambling ranged from 5-cent chuck-a-luck to poker pots reported at $1,000. Both could exist in one house because its customers had different incomes. Credit turned tomorrow's wages into tonight's sales. A regular ranch hand, railroad employee, miner, or merchant could run a tab until payday. A customer treating the bar could spend several days of pay before noticing. Freight explained price differences. Whiskey in a barrel packed high value into limited space. Bottled whiskey cost more to ship because glass was heavy and fragile, but the bottle protected a brand. Champagne needed strong glass and careful packing. Beer required bulky kegs, rapid turnover, ice, or refrigerated transport. In a rail town, competition could lower costs. In an isolated mining camp, the same bottle carried a steep premium. National distribution changed the balance without making it equal. Adolf used pasteurization and refrigerated rail cars to reach distant markets. Anheuser-Busch moved branded whiskey through San Francisco. Coors supplied a growing regional trade from Golden. Wholesalers in Denver, Dodge City, Leadville, and Virginia City connected producers to saloons. Depot towns had choices. Remote camps paid for distance. The owner also decided how much liquor reached the glass. Standard measures were less consistent than they are now. One bartender poured modestly. Another set out a bottle and watched closely. Watering the stock increased profit, though a keeper known for cheating customers could lose trade or invite trouble. Frontier commerce encouraged fraud, but customers remembered which bartender had cheated them. Free lunch, too, followed the same arithmetic. In a larger western city, a cheap beer could give access to bread, cheese, sausage, beans, pickles, or salted fish. The salt encouraged another drink. A ranch hand could still use the arrangement to stretch his money after weeks of trail cooking. Payday made the whole system more powerful. A hand might spend weeks riding, sleeping outside, and finding little reason to use cash. At Dodge City or another railhead, several weeks of wages became available besides several blocks of businesses designed to collect it. The sudden binge was not proof that every cowboy drank constantly. Long periods of restricted spending could produce one concentrated night. Some men left with most of their wages. Some bought boots, clothing, food, and gifts. Some lost money at cards, paid tabs, treated the crew, or became too drunk to manage a horse. The first glass could be affordable. The system surrounding it was built to keep the customer ordering. Still, a cowboy did not have to order whiskey. The Long Branch reportedly served milk, tea, lemonade, and sarsaparilla, along with beer, champagne, and liquor. That list matters because it comes from the kind of place modern audiences expect to be entirely alcoholic. Coffee was the most familiar alternative for working cattlemen. On the trail, cooks boiled it in large pots, usually strong and simple. It helped start work before daylight and carried men through cold mornings or night watches. In town, coffee could arrive with a meal in a ceramic cup instead of a tin one. A saloon with a kitchen or free lunch had a reason to keep it ready. Tea appeared in hotels, restaurants, and better supplied saloons. Milk depended on local dairies and storage. Cider traveled in barrels and varied from sweet to fermented. Ginger drinks and lemonade used sugar, flavoring, and water. Soda water required equipment or bottled supply, but western cities already supported soda fountains and mineral water businesses. Sarsaparilla could be sold as a soft drink or a tonic. The name did not guarantee that the contents were medicinal, effective, or consistent. The water question needs the same care as the whiskey question. Some Western sources were muddy, alkaline, polluted, or unreliable. Railroad camps, cattle crossings, and mining settlements could create serious contamination. Yet it is false that everyone drank alcohol because water was always deadly. People drank water every day. They boiled it for coffee and tea. Bartenders served it. Towns invested in wells, pipes, pumps, reservoirs, and ice, because usable water was essential. Harry Johnson's 1882 manual instructed bar staff to place ice water before a customer ordering a drink. That came from professional bar culture, not a temperance tract. It assumed water belonged on the counter. There were strong reasons to remain sober. A cowboy responsible for horses, a night herd, or a river crossing could not work well while drunk. A teamster needed control of a wagon. A railroad worker faced moving equipment. A lawman drinking heavily on duty risked his job and life. Many men drank when responsibility ended, not during every working hour. Religion and reform shaped the menu too. The Woman's Christian Temperance Union formed in 1874. Frances Willard became its national president in 1879 and helped turn local protest into a broad organization. Temperance supporters argued that the saloon took wages from families, encouraged violence, and tied working men to political machines. Their target was not only the liquid, it was the power of the business. Kansas moved further than most Western states. Voters approved a constitutional prohibition amendment in 1880, and the ban took effect in 1881. Kansas became the first state to place statewide prohibition in its constitution. Enforcement was uneven. Dodge City continued to support saloons, gambling, and dance halls because they drew cattle money. A law on paper could lose an argument with a profitable season. Local restrictions created a patchwork. One town licensed saloons. Another limited Sunday sales. Another tried to close gambling but tolerated beer. Religious settlements and dry communities rejected the open bar. Customers could cross a town line, use a hotel, obtain liquor through a druggist, or ignore the rule when officials ignored it too. The Anti-Saloon League began in Ohio in 1893 and soon pushed a focused political attack on the liquor trade. Reformers understood that the saloon organized votes, extended credit, provided jobs, and connected breweries to neighborhoods. A sober customer could order coffee, tea, milk, lemonade, soda water, cider, or sarsaparilla, where supply allowed. But the business still favored repeated orders. One cup of coffee occupied a chair, several beers paid the rent. The morning after depended on what happened around the drink. Intoxication could lead to falls, horse accidents, missed work, debt, arrest, family conflict, and violence. Yet a shooting inside a saloon was not automatically caused by whiskey. The building might simply be where gamblers, rivals, and armed men met. On April 5, 1879, Frank Loving and Levi Richardson exchanged gunfire inside the Long Branch. Richardson died, and Loving was wounded in the hand. A coroner's inquest released Loving on grounds of self-defense. The account centers on a personal dispute. Treating the fight as proof that one whiskey recipe drove men insane would be easier and less accurate. Bat Masterson, Wyatt Earp, Charlie Bassett, Doc Holliday, cattlemen, gamblers, and politicians entered saloon culture in different roles. A badge did not keep a man out of a saloon, and a saloon interest did not prevent a man from holding office. Dodge City's 1883 conflict made that clear. Luke Short had bought an interest in the Long Branch. Mayor Lawrence Deeger and a reform council passed ordinances aimed at vice and vagrancy, and officials moved against Short and other gamblers. Short left town, then returned with support from men including Bat Masterson and Wyatt Earp. The confrontation became known as the Dodge City War, though it ended without the expected street battle. The Peace Commission photograph recorded the compromise. It showed that saloon regulation involved governors, railroads, merchants, lawmen, and political factions. Kansas had already voted itself dry, but Dodge City depended on cattle season spending. Officials wanted order, license revenue, and respectable growth. Merchants wanted customers. Reformers wanted enforcement. Saloon owners wanted profitable games and bars. Cowboys wanted a place to spend money after the trail. No group controlled the result for long. Denver faced a related argument. German-owned beer halls offered music, meals, Sunday gatherings, and family attendance. Reformers saw alcohol and political influence. Immigrant customers saw community. Exclusion was real. Many saloons restricted women, and racial discrimination shaped entry and service. The Boston Saloon mattered, partly because black patrons and owners faced barriers elsewhere. Saloons created community, but not equal access. They also worked as communication centers. A ranch hand could find work, a miner could hear news, and a railroad worker could locate a room. Newspapers changed hands, mail waited behind the bar, and music filled hours after work. Alcohol paid for much of this activity, but it was not the only reason people entered. By 1885, the original Long Branch building was gone after a fire. Railroads kept reducing the isolation that made freight expensive. Breweries grew. Branded bottles became more common. In 1893, the Anti-Saloon League began organizing against the trade. In 1897, the Bottled in Bond Act created federal standards for whiskey sold under that designation. The old market had allowed too much confusion. What survives from the rotgut legend? Cheap and adulterated whiskey was real. Rectified spirits were common. Watering and false labels occurred. Quality varied sharply. What does not survive? The claim that every bartender used one poison recipe, that every cowboy drank constantly, or that every saloon sold the same 10-cent shot. A trail hand on payday, a German immigrant in a Denver beer hall, a miner at Leadville's Silver Dollar Saloon, a black businessman at Virginia City's Boston Saloon, and a wealthy guest ordering champagne in San Francisco belonged to the same Western drinking economy. Their glasses were filled through different wages, rail routes, breweries, wholesalers, laws, and social rules. Cowboys drank whiskey and beer most visibly, but the real saloon menu depended on the town, the year, the money, the supply, the customer's background, and whether he needed to ride out sober.